Hi there, this is Michael Becker, and in this Tinderbox lesson, I'm going to show you how I use Tinderbox with my preferred reference manager, which is Zotero. So let me jump right in and show you how that works. So here we go. We have my Tinderbox file, and I'm going to pull over a web page, and you'll see here I have a web page, and this is Zotero. Now you can use Zotero with its online library. You can also use Zotero as a downloadable app on your computer. It works for Mac, Windows, and Linux. There is a freemium version, and if you want to upgrade storage, actually, store PDF files and other documents, you can. Now, let me show you how it works. So let's say I'm going along and I find this article that I really like. I can use the Zotero plugin here to be able to add that item to Zotero. So you'll see over here, so I've clicked on it, and you'll see that this item has already immediately been added to my Zotero database, and it's also already been pre-parsed. So it's populated and parsed all of the items as well. Now, if I want to do that for other types of items, I could. So let's say I see this article here, I really like it. I can go ahead and add it to the database. I can add tags to it if I want. And then if I come back over to Zotero, you'll see here it is. Now the difference with this one though is it didn't parse as cleanly. And I'll show you an example where I've actually cleaned that up before, and you'll see that it's cleaner here. Like Zotero recognized this as a web page, not a blog article. So you can change the style, make it a blog article. Then you can come in and clean up the names. So like this is the guy's last name. So I'll pop that over into the last name field here, and you'll see how I can then just go through and clean up the database. It also didn't catch the date, so I can go over here and double check the date that this article was done, February 19th, 2019, and I can go ahead and make that 2 19 get it typed right, 2019. Now, what I found over time when I first started this whole process, I'd get lazy and not populate things immediately, and I'm like, oh, I'll go back and fix it later. The reality is I never went back and fixed it later, and now it's taking me more time now. So I highly encourage you, if you do want to add something to your Zotero database and you do want to keep it, just take the few extra seconds to clean it up and make it work exactly the way you want. Okay, so I found these articles on the web and I really like them. Now there's other things that you can do with Zotero. I'm going to move this off to the side. Let's say I like this article. I'm actually going to use this one up here. Let's say I like this article. Well, I can go ahead and tag it if I want. I can say privacy, and I add this one. I can say personal, personal data economy, and add that tag to the file. So I can add tags to the file, which is very, very useful. Likewise, and I didn't do it in this case, but if I tag this item here, you can see, as I noted before, you can tag items just by clicking here, and then tagging items. You can tag items too as you're adding them into the database. So now I've got my item into Zotero. And now the big question is, how do I get this item out of Zotero and into my Tinderbox file? Well, the way to go about doing that is you want to use your, you go to File Preferences, and Zotero supports a ton of different types of export formats. So you can, and it also supports a number of different bibliography styles as well. And we can talk about that in a more advanced lesson. But you'll see here are all the export formats that Tinderbox supports. That Zotero supports. And if you click on the RIS translator, that's what these Tinderbox or Zotero calls these different export formats. They calls it translators. If I select the RIS translator as the one I want, and I hit close, what I can do now is all I need to do is drag this item over to Tinderbox. Let me go over here. And you'll see, voila, Tinderbox has automatically pulled that item into it. It is automatically added the prototype references, and you'll see it's already automatically parsed out and populated attributes with all of the Zotero fields and data. What Tinderbox is doing in this case, and let me go ahead and add this, you'll see an attribute in Tinderbox called reference.ris. And so when the RES file is coming over from Tinderbox, here are all of the values in that RES file. Let me show you how to export this. Let me drag this file over to my desktop. And you'll see I've dragged this file over to my desktop now, and I'm going to go ahead and open this file using a text editor. Let's go ahead and go find my BB edit. Give Give me a second while I open up BB Edit. And you'll see this is basically what the file format of an RIS file is. It has some prefixes to the items that are the attributes coming up out of Zotero. And you'll see its journal article, the author's name is the labeled LB here, and you'll see other, here are the keywords that I had put in and such. Now, what Tinderbox does is it looks at that, takes this item, the elements of this RIS file, it drops them into the attribute reference RIS, and then using the internal action code, Tinderbox automatically parses that out, and now you've got your item in Zotero. Or excuse me, you've got your Zotero reference and item in Tinderbox. Works great. Now let me show you how I go about operationalizing this and some extra little tweaks and elements that I add for my workflow. So if I pop over my file here, you'll see here is a working file I have for some of the social media posts that I've been playing with, and some references that I've been working on, and an article that I've been writing. And it works super, super well. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to drag that file over. And so but now here's what's different. You'll notice here is the reference RIS file. And you'll notice that I've got a number of my own custom attributes that I've put into the file. And likewise, what I've done is I've actually added some action script, or action code, if you will, to do some extra work on the RIS file that Tinderbox doesn't do on its own, because I've added some unique elements like CiteKey. Is a custom attribute that I use, as well as I've modified the RIS file, and I want to pull in leveraging the .following operator, for example. Anything after TY, I wanted to populate my item attribute. I want the Zotero URI coming through with the elements that are tagged and labeled in the RIS file with LC. I also want to have the text of the file modified, so I've got some prompts for me to ask and answer questions about that particular piece of research, and I populate other date fields as well, such as date published, etc., using the .following operator. Now, what's critically important in my implementation of Zotero is this factor here, what I call CiteKey. Now, in my Zotero file, and let me pull that back over here, there is a plugin that you can add to Zotero called BetterBibTex. And this is the plugin. If you go to this URL and go to the Zotero BetterBibTex plugin, I find this super, super useful because it allows you to extend the various attributes and fields that you pull out of Zotero. And for me, particularly, what it does is it creates this cite key. And I can then use that cite key for a whole bunch of other different operations that I'm going to show you in just a second. And we'll review integrating BetterBibTex in a more advanced class. So for now, I'm just going to demonstrate what the possibility is. And in a future class, we can show you how that actually really works. So for me, I use this BetterBibTex, and that has this attribute we call cite key. Okay, so now let me show you what happens now. If I have my my modified prototype of a built-in prototype of reference with my Edict action code put on. Now watch what happens when I drag an item from Zotero over into my Tinderbox file. I go like this, and it automatically processes it out. So what it's doing is, for me, if you look at my action code, again, I'm having it take all of that information and drop the abstract into the text. I'm having it add my prompt questions that I want. I'm having it add date accessed and the citation key. And then what I'm doing is I'm having it grab the citation key and make that the name of the note. So because for me as an academic, I really want to key off of these the citations as I'm making references to those items in my notes. So that is a really great way of how to bring your references from Zotero over into Tinderbox. Now let me show you, why you might want to do that and some operational actions here. So let me go ahead and add a note here. We'll go note, and let's say, according to, according to, and then I want to reference that note. So I can do a zip link, and if I type my @ this is part of the reason why I do it. There's the reference that we've just had, and I can bring that in. And that works out and is really a really powerful thing for me. And I'm just demonstrating the reference. Now, this is where, again, in my workflow, it gets super powerful. And I'm not going to do it in this lesson, but I'm going to demonstrate it to you in a more advanced one. I have a stamp that I use within my Tinderbox files. And let me go ahead and actually bring that stamp in, because it doesn't happen to be in this example. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this stamp in. All right. So I have this a stamp that I use in my Tinderbox files, and I leverage another application called Pandoc. And so I'm going to go ahead and apply that stamp, and I'll just show you briefly the code of that stamp so you can see it. And this is what the code of that stamp looks like, and we'll review it at a later date. But what that allows me to do, I'm going to go ahead and apply it to this note again. What this allows me to do is I then, using Pandoc and some other processes, background processes, when I go to preview this note, watch what happens. It goes out into my database and actually pulls up, and it drops in line the appropriate citation and actually gives me the reference. So by integrating with Zotero in this way, tying it with BetterBibTex and using Pandoc, you can get some really rich examples. And let me show you some other examples. Like on one of my social posts, here is an article, that about the recent Apple announcement of Apple monitoring content, and you'll see here I'm saying the Electronic Frontiers Foundation, the CiteKey assessment of Apple's decision to monitor users' photos, etc. I just go ahead and preview, and then it will automatically populate it, stick in the appropriate references, as well as give me the appendix. So it works great for like these social post examples. Another example, and see in a more robust version, here's an article I wrote yesterday. And you'll see here I've got scattered throughout my article different citations using this style that we were showing before. I'm also using some footnotes as well. And if I go and then preview that article, you'll see that the article is going to get completely rendered. All of my citations are going to get properly formatted in the APA style guideline if I'm using a Chicago CLS file rather than an APA style CLS file. I would get that. Plus, I get all of my references and that are being pulled out of Zotero and into my Tinderbox file, and I get all of my footnotes. But that's for a more advanced session, and we'll show you how to do that later. So what we've done is we've basically demonstrated using Zotero, leveraging the RAS export functionality, you can get an incredibly tight integration between your reference manager and Tinderbox. And this also allows me to, and one other benefit here is, let's say I've made a typo or an error in this reference, I can make a change over here, and wherever I've used that reference, whenever I render it, it automatically gets updated because it's pulling the reference itself from Zotero based on that cite key that I've brought in. So critically important stuff. And there you have it. That's how you can use Zotero and Tinderbox. So I hope you enjoyed that, and please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.